that's a town lot something that's letting out the life. Green thing and Sontsa Initiative Pukim Labdra Sogini Kiki Nambalani Mixi Council Lani Ari Tololang Suni Nisho Gatolani workshop de any petrol any cutting chi ni tema se dingwe Kidu Sirana che ni ki and counselor young lani ding musu peto lamdingila again number ni peto amune cutting chi she to shobonga pe gecha in three the pure the cutting chi so nganzu 당보 모두 돌디 치우섬 컨셉때 룩중 아란 중은요 니 니미나 토마데 간데 남게 수유 나란 탄다니 브라운 톨로블라니 로림 숨바 룩두지 아니 ngo마 실리기 퓨긴 아니 로마 타순두지 아니 플러스게 마 감수남라니 모두스
상물 드레스레시 당보들라니 예민 까무스나미 닝아니 마안디 머머스리 베김니 튼샤균시 단다 와바스톨로 인디아나라니 컴퓨터 사이언스 이코노믹스 당 앙지 창데 디젤라 디경
Thangwala le ani nyeming la digyang zum ani nga thanda nga jima masri phegim la dogyo yi ani thanda nga Brown University la lorim thangbo ani economics changde ani ngi chila nima phuti
Thangwala le nyeming la nima phuti nga nyama 진주 중에 살아교 표現대행을 바라고비 표준 디얼롭 정치와이 단다가수업의 위든 college 라 게임의 스리기 롭 정치 신부이 예줄라 뱀버더마
정말로 저스들이 아니 이제 간들라 시간 신데 단다 야갈 페이지 가고 차대리 엔디강라 세프템버인데 엔 믹스기 롭투 거의 제도 아니 레시덴 표현 터전나 시기라 아니 예민이야 뱀버도 제 아니 엄마 지금 주고 포도 살기 필김 안데네 유럽스 마스리클라니 네덜란드 라 로니 롭총 제 안탄다 아리기 오버랜 톨로그 아니 인질라 춘som라
테스트 예민 덴지 춘som이 nga ari da kigyoi ani nga ari laptara chingi tanda high school ine tanda Stanford thorobayo ani 다롱아 gap year gangla yo ine nga jima lo ko chudi gangla lorum sumba ko chugre
그린치 근데 counselor 용 무슨 무드치 두주 유나 간디차 길라 넘버 그렇지 무드치가 길라 간디차 무드 연 두주면에 가면
간델라스티다 간델라 나버서 뒤주나 아니 어떻게 나니 뒤라 그냥 간델라서 뒤주면은 어떻게 가슬 비지 미망부지요
러슬러스
미주라스
알레 러슬러스 인 캠된 좀 고추셔 그렇지 so 드링 안주 워크숍 디 토마데 디슈 선스간지 인지 망부디도 니 카시야 인지 기니 마케제시 뒤답되었다 아니면 돈이 코도 트레기니 온디긴기니 인지 인게라 게레 인테마세 인지게 양참서디랑라 되지 지셔기 담론이 공개매야 시행한주니 카운트도니 비가 장마게다 답시니 조디 코다 트레이드 케이션 벌슨 것도 안 드링킹 안주디 워크숍 디랑라다 아웃라인 라니디 당슈디 지다 콜레지 아리치도 콜레지 애드미션 프로세스 기지 콜롱오드 도두도시 이네 니 디슈글라 참마 안주 조 counselor 기니 응원이다 앱 콜레지 애플리케이션 프로세스 디 나올라 카르카레니 로는 치투레 데마세니 롤도 디카도시레 인티툴라 온디콜라 조기지르시 지질라 financial aid scholarships 다 니 student visa 온디톨랑한주 모두도체 니 타마델라 Q&A 세션도 지와 챌린기니 두주주에 두두갑라니 기란정을 송한주 게시교도 볼지 믹스지 마틱나 딜렉티어 그러는 한주 무투네 단데 세션 디 제수니 먼저 지역군이 아가투네 링크야 답시 체 됐어 Thoma data ni gozushana ni application process aritina so di lobtu ki ta la mangche chi lobtu rangi chiu ki ra susu ki lobtu ngune nyensho terang yang gore ta nyensho kya di nanglo la ta yang components mangune ka mangbu churia peche shina personal information ta yin bache tema se extracurricular list ni tema se keshu chik susu personal statement SHA 2 ki ria diche tema se application nanglo lian samsam tholop susula rali de supplemental essay lan yo kisi tholop brown tholop lani nisho geuna kunsuya college specific essay kisi tc rio tema se standardized testing la du kabla so SAT ta ni ACT lan chetuya tinzu do chin tingsa college mangbuji optional suidu ine kisi lob ranki ni tuju tang tune ni SAT tang tuna uni so kyaja yaplen tuna tholo mangbu gauchi che tema se nganzu jidang pebe kloma mangbuji international student chedu kabla che zang hunzu English proficiency exam che tang ki rio ta dinang le yang ya kha she je ta options ma suni ya TOEFL yo ba che ni Duolingo English test ni IELTS yo 리zu 인짐 질럽도 기탄 거체 서비스 치고래 인 지부지 그냥 봐줘 되니 람도인 길을 쪽이니 에다 카도 치고라나 럽도기 다 로시링 가지고 와줘 주지 중니 가지 가지디 땅고 히레 테마세 counselor ranking winnie any recommendation letter je 치고래 letter of recommendation 아니 냠도 school report je 경고 히레요 아니 드링 무슨 제일 아니 demonstration je 체인지다 college counselor kini portal jure ondi khande thungure ichi bujang lobju ngune khande chigoran ding ngaju chisuma demonstrate chain so thanda ding ngaju ngode ran chei ni dema seta chita college app timeline doji khande khilana so de gozwe di fall semester la tang ngaju chinda guwa yen de ma gozu ni chinda 로제마디 진도 숨바 시와스나마타 죽두유리야 인제 인도가 저 ngasen 가주 다리치도니 약쇼체 제자 베체시나 수수기 롭투지나디 nganzu ari dosina pude 진짜 죽지리도 갈다 제마 진중이도 다리치리야 따디나올라 그 college list swede lire 테마세니 college 라니 다 component mongboda pesine chomdi thiure SAT tangore amna TOEFL tang sungasne khali chine thamadeni application cycle take del ari dosina tinda 중니 고주도 갑라 고주 간이스나 fall semester 들라 다다 중니 고주에 되게 간다 그 중니 튼도 갑라니 그 콜랍다 가가 좀 하고 들이야 당한주 야갈이는데 대음말에 띵띵치 최장 너도 망보지 같이 있잖아 college 진중이 튼사우질 애플리케이션 연기도 야음나 진중이 둔두치네 지마 토 말했은 것도 이나 지단다 보르다 디스카도 게리마도 조다 페이지나 진도 죽지 나올라 데드라인 당슈디 리디아 ED 당 EA 라네 early action 당 early decision 니 디디갑라 어디 지리래 엔 디젤라 다 카도 쿨라네 그 기슬랍데 츠유메 니 진다 중니스키 기마들 하고 간다 어디다 early decision lane 어디 케베 나리아 nga kuria ineta regular decision lane ya tuzu juro di 진다 당보 기 체직스단 남규 그 application 디 양 차주고야 이네 디 lane 디 진다 진다 숨베기 답슈다 진다 시웨기 고조가 마도 하고 마 제자에 디 투즈링가 고기래 이네야 지수 양나양 디브런 투즈 망하다 다리체 지부지가 진다 당보다 진니와다 숨베기 벌슈들이야 인터뷰 라인 투즈레리아 따디 인터뷰 남줄럽도 망부지 required 말에 이네 가두네 플로드라 그것들하나 랭킹한테 데디케이션 벌슨 것도야 오늘도 지난 타임라인 채널도 지래 노서 니 디젤랭 디기양 좀다 감수남랑 코라니 야간에라 아릴라파 폴로니 쇼기야 되고라 이토라니 용소다 제니 코란주기 데 냠뇽지 시레 인데블로
참말로 제스래 테니 땅아 디 나라 이모 거머나 페지셰 거머나 규데니 콜레지 애플라이 치라 오디 냠뇽시 오선트라 아니 나조이나 당시 카운슬러라 나라다 남규이나 애플리케이션 디친데 기어노 고주라 거머나티 아니 나라조이나 카운슬러라 다니 지시라니 기네라 셰라 길랑아 애플라이 체이스 오디 계셔부 통고더라 아니 디젤라 아니 카운슬러 임도 할러 일라서 지라 강사님도 무튼이 저 셔주라 어디 계신 분이 생고더라 하잖아 카운슬러게 칼로 예페 망보려 베나시나 동zo 칼로 콜레지 플라시 디셈버 하슈 피토리아 아니 베나시나 원zo ngaduina brown duina suso 칼로 application fee di dollar din donga du she ani wodi son zani fee wave sharia ani fee wave shela ani counselor ge 칼로 robo chituria penachina suzu khalor tangzo phegi mache suzu khalor nyamda che ni suzu capture yilana counselor ge phala khalor re lane khalor suzu the proof dostena ani khalor feed wave chituria education bo che du samudo ni dijela khalor alle dijela suzu the common application go zuranna la counselor ge ni khare khar lalna ani counselor penetration maobe chair ya counselor ge ne halor su ji grading system jura abc re na percentage na re do and mangbo re din sama ni halor counselor ge chi ya ani dijela ani halor lobta khashi do na su halor counselor ge ni gang mi kemba yam ge she ani su ji zile kuwa ni junior budu su grade jura 막시디 라이 규리아 다 원주르나 마스리 베김드나 수수 당슈 막시디 니 칼로 길라니로 강 미겜바라 아니 코즈니로 아니 카운슬러 라 칼로 막시디 상 pdf 스라니 카운슬러 파 서밋 체닌 디젤라 카운슬러 게 하치나 업로드 체는 상호디 카운슬러 게 체리아 아니 어디 last line 칼로레 수수 apply chisa jela ani thundo council ge khachelna ani final report last area penashina suzu kizi zinde chungni nardara ani zinde chungni final report diyo mara ani wo dirasa jela suzu application submit chisa re ani thundo khalor zinde chungni final grade di submit chigura wo di jela council ge ya submit cheria wondure
the ngaran cha shona nyema phigim dream ba phigim do che the ari tholobla transition che bika plani ta nyamnu dordu show samso khandre che me ta ngaran cha shona nyema ni masru phigim seri dese de angjilin chan ba digital ni option de ni modu chungma sangala option thangbo de ni engineering college la de apply che j mains che ni engineering college la doere option new de ni ari tholo khala ni apply che ji option dire ani didosu ni option chikta injim jitam gora deshini ani didosu sunza leshi didosu toshi dido saudo shre ani session manguro chochi didosu tuze indo shikezo didosu sunza leshi ni session dizo so attempt che ani mentor da mentee mentor ra che ani guidance mangura che ni ari tholo lan di apply che decision ni ani the decision le jela ni step mango yara di step thangbo de ni exit ay dire do pechashana ni ari tholo la kyu inji shingi yela che ni exit tang kha she shu ri pechashana ni dulingo tang chore profile tang chore IELTS la chu be de tang chore densum de inji tang chore ni exit ni yo shu do standardizing test la jure SAT tang ACT la shure KC ani kyugi zinda chungni zinda goane chungni pardu KC gaja yabu ostop시 ostop 매바 있나니 SAT 당제 당아 가자 야부 요nga디 KC kyugi college 라가 KC nga디 초에나 academic curriculum 딩어디 이게 창투요라지 proof래요 KC SAT 다 ACT 당투하는 디 base rate 당 레션이 디질라니 step 디니 college 커리그리 소소 independent research 호르도 센서 레시기니 the main the law the miden zola guidance share do hiba ni di gaja geju je ni so ran chogore samudu this is the digital step the US college khogo dwe ni list so the list the package mo samudu and digital ni a letter of recommendation la jure and SS so SS mo wote re and digital CSS la yani financial form document zo upload che platform jure dana shigi kankashe mo ko do jelani anzo leire and digital ni kechesu di page deadline di anzo meet che dire page college manchi deadline di tanji kandila issue na shingi ED last year di December November di December lagi admission di letter rede new di page regular decision di January 15 badu tang gore samudu di decision di March March admit April di shini deadline di anzo complete che di anzo vacation gore samudu di je sawe jela ni shuju che mardo di che college sang apply che sawe jela ni de March April dola kuira dus kuderdo admission rawana ni yakshore mara ni kyo mari opportunity shamba mo re pecha shana ni TSP la jure master la apply che re opportunity khande do pebo chiso nangora ani kisi acceptance rawana college kaji kashi rawana di kang college khari ki khirani ngil yakshu ti du de la acceptation kunzu I20 le form ti do I20 law na college di lob through di accept che lob through di detail mango she do di ti de document shamba khashi khishi ani visa interview book cho do visa interview di book ngare ngasang che le do khaila na di rai di pick ala khobor peje dijela peje ni mo pudi di kola shuere samudu ani dagara re peje nya chik shuejila di do document di IC KC the IC di go sona yakor samudu pechena ni ji situation la chashawana ngala di admission letter top jo imba ni ngara lakol IC me di dosto dishini the drutuena sama khorgila dishini IC di nga sang suela ni do dagara ni ji dordido shi dijela chinsamla shire
야요 kadinche ni nimputi digal nimbe ki gyana ji kira tuzu de simpangi chunjum pember mala konda
Yes. So as you can see on the slide, now I will be talking about letters of recommendation. It might be like very familiar, especially since everyone here is counselors and teachers, but because it is an essential part of the students' college application process and their acceptance process, we see the importance of talking about it today. So most colleges in the US, they will or may ask for more than one letters, and they may require that at least one of these letters to be from a guidance counselor of the respective student school. So since our focus will be especially for your students who are applying to US colleges, I want to start by discussing what US colleges are looking for in a letter of recommendation. So the admission officers, they are typically looking for a very detailed and honest evaluation of a student's academic performance, students' personal qualities, and also their potential for success in college. So they want to know how the student compares to their peers and what makes them stand out among their peers. And then in order to write a very strong letters of recommendation, I believe that you should start by getting to know your student as much as possible. So meet with your student, try to review their academic records and learn about their interests, their passions and goals. And once you learn about them, I think it will help you to write a more personalized and insightful letter, which is, of course, will be more beneficial for your student. And then when writing the letter, it's essential to be as specific as you could, and then use some concrete examples to support whatever claims that you are making about your students' skills or abilities. Talk about their academic achievements, any leadership skills or extracurricular activities, and any sort of notable accomplishment that the student completed. And then, if possible, try to use some very strong action verbs and avoid vague or very generic language. And then I'm sure you will understand that letters of recommendation should be written in a very professional and respectful tone. And then next, when it comes to formatting and structuring your letter, there are a few key elements that must be included, and I'm going to utilize this example. So you should start with the heading. Heading include your address or the current school address that the student goes to. And then at today's date, skip 2 lines. It's kind of important skipping that 2 lines. And then write down the address of whomever you are writing to after this. But if the student is applying through common app or multiple colleges at a time, or in the case of not being sure of whom you are writing to, then you can use the very general sentence "to whom it may concern," and then put that in the bold letters. And then again, skip 2 lines, write the salutation, which will normally just be "dear" or "respected admission committee" or admission officers, since it's a college application process. And then again, skip 2 lines and continue with the body of your letter. So this is an example that I found of what goes into the body of a letter of recommendation. So the body should be generally from 5 to 7 paragraphs. It can be less than 5 paragraphs if all the content are there, but I recommend to not go beyond 7 paragraphs, because we should consider the fact that admission officers are reading thousands of applications and thousands of letters. So keep that in mind. And then so for the first paragraph of the body, you should include a sentence that indicates that this is a letter of recommendation for your student, followed by an explanation of how you know your student. So you can say, "I am the counselor," or you can be the class teacher, or whatever your relationship is to that student. And then put a general comment about your student's talent or abilities and achievement. Okay, and then in the next paragraph, now you should start writing and providing specific evidence of students' talent or abilities, and try to cover the areas that I mentioned in my previous slide. So there's academic achievement, which should include class ranks, how the student is compared to other students, and then academic strengths such as problem-solving abilities or thinking skills, speaking and writing abilities, and etc. And then include performance in class or the student's performance in other settings. So when writing about it, remember to provide specific evidence of whatever skills and talent, such as a project that the student completed or a task that the student undertook. And then mention the personal characteristic of students. So try at least like 5 personality traits. For example, you can say the student is responsible, is dependable, is motivated, but don't just list out the personality trait. Try to explain and illustrate how the student demonstrated these sort of traits to you. And then put, like, of course, mention extracurricular activities, including clubs, organizations, or leadership roles and jobs that the student did. So these all should be completed in like 3 or 5 paragraphs. And then for conclusion, it should include a summarizing sentence that state your general thought about the student, indicating that you feel strongly and positively about this student, and then a statement that shows you believe the student will be successful in whatever program that they're applying to enter. So that's all that I have to say today. Thank you very much for attention. And if anything I said today is unclear or need any further guidance, I'm going to share 2 very useful links in the chat box that you can save and refer to it later. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Nora.
So this next slide is the official writing guide for counselors from the Common Application PDF on the writing guide for counselors and teachers. So I have the link for the PDF in this slides, which we'll share with everybody later. And I have some more resources for letter of recommendation writing. But just to cover briefly, since Pempadoma mainly said everything, some things about leadership are like anecdotes about leadership in clubs, sports, or other parts of communities, extracurricular activities, things like that. Another key factor is describing the student's academic achievements. So a good explanation of like the student's transcripts, test scores within the context of the school and the graduating class, including unusual circumstances with course selections or performance. And then in case students might have some issues within their transcript, that there's an issue. I mean, there's an opportunity for you to explain that in the letter of recommendation if that's the case. And then also if the student has won any awards or honors, you can explain that there as well. Another aspect that you can write about in a letter of recommendation is the student's growth measured over the course of their high school career, including academic progress and social emotional development or maturity. And then we can also talk about engagement. So how engaged are they with the school, their family, their community? And if the student has shared any particular experiences with you that have shaped them as a student. Another thing to talk about is resilience. So some students may face challenges or obstacles during their time in school, such as school transfers, family situations, illnesses, or personal struggles. If they talk to you about that, and if you think that they have done a good job of overcoming that and are resilient and have resilience, then that is also something you can talk about in the letter of recommendation. And then Bembedomo covered a lot of the character aspects of this, but you can also talk about your personal interactions with the student and your observations of how students interact with other students or faculty members as well. So any anecdotes that highlight empathy and concern for others would be really good. And then on this slide, there are some links from the Common application. So the official portal where every student submits most of their college application materials. They wrote a guide for writing letters of recommendations, and also specific ones for counselors and teachers. Then there's more examples of good letters of recommendations from counselors. And then the college essay guide is a very good resource for both students and counselors and teachers for anything college related. So he also wrote a really good guide on how to write the letter of recommendation specifically for counselors.
Yeah, thank you. And then we'll share the presentation, so you'll have the link afterwards. So in this case, I'll show a demonstration of what the portal on the counselor side looks like and how it all goes through. So give me a second. Let me screen share another screen. And if you have questions along the way, please feel free to drop it in the chat box, or you can save it for at the end of it when. Okay, so right now I'm looking at what a Common App portal looks like for a student. So student would generally just go to commonapp.org and they would create an account for themselves. And so once they're in this Common App dashboard, this is what it looks like. They would have to add, once they select a college, for example, let's say the student selects, let's the student selects the Brown University as a college, the student has to invite a counselor and a teacher, letter of recommenders, and so on. So in here, I've already invited a counselor. In this case, all you have to do is put their email address and their name. And once that happens, they'll send an email to the counselor saying, hey, Carlton invited you to be the counselor, and so on, and create an account. And once you follow that step, you create an account. And after creating an account, this is what your counselor would see. And this is what a student would see. So in a counselor's portal, essentially, if you have multiple students, you'll see, this is supposed to be the student's name, but I just put Sontsa Initiative, sorry. But you'll see multiple students here, one student. So that's all we have. And you can select on the student and it'll give you what you need to submit. And in here, since on the student's part, only selected one college, Brown University, you should see only Brown University. That's the only school that student's applying. And so you would have to submit these. And here it'll ask you, how is the student class ranking work? And if there's none, just simply say none. And then it'll ask you is there a GPA that's reported? And if it's no, again, no. And if it is, yes, and then again. And once you get to the curriculum section, it's a little bit more detail. But again, I think it's relatively simple because most of these are not applicable. And then the most important aspect of it is the transcript, essentially the mark sheets that the counselor would have to submit on behalf of the student. So generally there will be total, I guess, like 9th grade, 10th grade, and 11th, and 12th would be the board exams, right? So that wouldn't be out yet. So you would just select 3 and upload each of them. So the first one, 9th grade, and then so on. And you would indicate so on. And once you're done with this, what you would do is go to the counselor's recommendation section. And here they'll ask you to follow these steps. It's relatively intuitive. And for the recommendation part of it, you can either write it in a paper and then upload a PDF of it, or you could write it in here. But people generally do write on a PDF and upload it. And from my experience, I've gotten a letter of recommendation with the letterhead of a Tibetan TCV school, and it seems more formal and everything. It's credential and so on. So that's something I would recommend. And once you upload it, you would submit it, right? And the optional report is, at the moment, it's not available, but essentially, if you have, I don't think most of them are not applicable, except for the final report, which would be the board exam score you would upload after the board exam score is released. So that's like something you would see on the counselor side of portal. Yeah, so that's the demonstration I have here. And if you have questions, please feel free to ask. Let me go back. Yeah, so that's the demonstration. Wait, it's not working. Oh, sorry, I messed up. So like both the screen sharing looked exactly the same because I couldn't tell which one's which. So this is the presentation. Okay, there you go. Now I just briefly want to cover like the financial aid and the types of financial aid and scholarships that's offered throughout the application process. In general, financial aid process works in 2 sides, the admission and as well as the financial aid. That's a little bit weird, but like I think what is to know here is that when colleges look into your application, you would categorize them into generally two types. Either the college is need aware or need blind, which is need aware essentially means that when the colleges are reading your application, and if it is a need aware, they'll consider your ability to pay for college tuition and so on in their consideration of your application. So for example, if a college doesn't have enough money, even though you're a good applicant, you may not get in because they just can't afford to pay your full scholarship. On the contrary, if the schools are need blind, they essentially do not look at your financial how much, let's say for me, in my case, I couldn't pay any money, but my school that I applied to was need blind, and they, looking at my application alone, they decided they wanted to accept me, and so they offered the full financial aid as needed. So those are the 2 types of schools you would look into. And then in terms of the financial aid side of things, there's the merit scholarship which a student might get depending on if you applied a particular scholarship in that school. For example, depending on like whether you have a great SAT score or your great transcript or just a particular like scholarship within that school. And then need-based finance is essentially financial. Let's say I can pay 50% of the cost, but I need 50% help from the school. And financial aid officers may look at that and offer you that 50%. And finally, external scholarships. That could be like scholarships from organizations outside of the school. For instance, like Gandhi or for example, but that's not exactly, I don't know if applicable to the colleges in the States, but that's an external scholarship. And once you're admitted into a school, there's always for chance for you to appeal for financial aid process, which is essentially, let's say school A and B, A offers better scholarship, but you want to go to B, you can say, hey, A is offering a better scholarship. Would you consider giving me more money so that I can come to B because I want to go to B? So we have more information here. Again, we'll share the slide so you And then something like this is something like I'm sure you guys are very familiar with. The generally scholarship that's offered in the CTA are barrier scholarship, which is not exactly a scholarship because you have to apply and it's not guaranteed that you'll get it, but it's an option and if they consider Tibetan applicants in it. Similarly, GLI, I'm not 100% sure it's how active it is now, but they do offer scholarships. And something that I want to stress is like, especially as counselors, to communicate with students is that a lot of the scholarships are not like readily advertised. And for instance, like in the CTA, these are the only 2 ones that we see on the upfront, but there are tons of scholarships that schools may offer, particularly depending on what school, like in various colleges in the United States, for example, Brown University has tons of scholarships, but that's not exactly specific and particular for Tibetan students, but in general, right? So I think encouraging students to do research on the internet, essentially just looking up for a keyword scholarships for international students, and you would find tons of information on that. And if they take the time to do the research, I think there's tons of options and opportunities out there, and especially for undergraduates, so bachelor's degree. And I think that's something we all can reflect here as students. We all are, I think, for the most part, on full aid. And in addition to doing that research, there's this document we have already organized. We'll share the slide again, where we do have particular scholarship programs that students can apply. Yeah. But yeah, I'll hand it over to Nima.
Adding on to what Kandila said, so I came here on a full ride scholarship. I applied 2 times to United States, and for my first year, I got rejected from all the college that I applied to because they were small liberal arts college. I didn't apply to big schools, so the small schools don't have a lot of money, and if your application is not enticing enough, not unique enough, there's a high chance that you might not get in, like I did. So what I did, like Calvin said, I use a lot of keywords. So my college has a refugee scholarship. It's offered every year, and our school is the undergraduate school. It's a refugee scholarship. That means that Tibetan students can apply. But it's not advertised like usual, like it's not advertised like Carlton has that, but it's a full 4-year full ride scholarship, and it even covers your health insurance, travel, and everything. So if a lot of Tibetan students know about this, and if they're interested, I think it's a good thing to look at it. Our college is called Wheaton College, and Caldina definitely has the document to that. So bouncing on to what Carmela said about I-20, for F1 student visa checklist, usually when students come to undergraduate, our visa is called F1 visa. So when you get like after after like everything you're done, you got the acceptance letter, your college will send you I-20 with the valid program start date. So most of the programs in United States semester starts in August, so you would get a valid I-20, and that's just like basically where you're gonna start all of your visa application process. So a valid passport is required. In our case, it's identity certificate, IC, and a passport picture. So like if you click on the link I-20, it's like I-910 fee. It's like a service fee that you have to pay to US government for the visa, that F1 student visa you're getting. So it has to be paid online. It's $350, and it's a lot of money, but you have come this far. So I think if you cannot afford it, maybe you could ask your relatives or anything, like, but it's like you have come this far, right? It has to pay it, and once you paid it, you will get a confirmation letter, and you will print it out, and there will be a specific, like you would get a specific service number on your I-20, and you have to bring it to your visa interview. After that, you go online and you book a visa in like you file an application called DS-160, which is $160, basically like 1,300 rupees. You have to file it online, and when you file the DS-160, that's when you get the confirmation. After you apply, after you file it, you have to pay and everything. After that, you will get a barcode, as you can see here, like with all of these confirmation letter. And after that, you go to your visa appointment. Visa appointment has two. There's biometric appointment and there's visa interview appointment itself. So in India, there's 5 different US consulate or US embassy, and each has different acceptance rates. So it's important that you research ahead so that like you don't go to so that you don't end up with the one with the least acceptance. It's mostly the Hyderabad one is really like difficult to get into do. So nowadays, due to COVID and all those restrictions, there are a lot of like people who are having problem with getting US visa interview. Like the appointment dates are in like 2024 or 2025. So I suggest, like at my time, I did it by myself. So I didn't have to like, even though there were a lot of like competition, but it was okay. But now times I do suggest that you do consult a valid agency who can like book such visa interview with you for guarantee, so that like you can get your visa interview on appropriate time. Basically, the timeline is you can apply for this appointment 4 months before your program start. So let's just say your program starts at August 30, so you can start your visa application in like May. So it's like there's some rules and regulations that you have to follow, and there are a lot of like resources online that you can look it up about visa application. It's basically same as Indian visa student application. It's just when you put the country, we just put stateless, but it's basically same. So if you're paying, like let's just say some students have like didn't get full financial aid, so you have to show a bank statement. You have to show a valid financial proof that, or you can go to United States and you can pay pay for college. A lot of what students does is they use like a statement from their relative or something like that can show that you have full financial proof. Well, the last important thing is like you bring your all school mark sheet, like hours that you received any like acceptance letter or anything, but everything must be printed. And if you look at it, one nuance is like, because Tibetans don't have 3 names, what we do is for the first name you put F and U, and for the last name you put Nima Puti, and that would be the like the format that US system follows. So it you must be like, if you don't have that format, you have to reach, like you have to edit your document before you go, like they won't let you in. So it's more than that, you also take note of that. Other than that, I don't have a lot of things to say. Yeah, next.
Yeah, thank you. Just to add on to that, I think general, given that you are a F1 student, you have a student visa, I think you may be able to get interviews quicker than the rest of like general applicants. So that's something to consider. But overall, throughout the process, I recommend that you be in communication with the international admission office. So you've got your I-20 and everything. And if you're having difficulty getting an appointment, just always communicate with the school and they'll try to accommodate and make changes as needed. I think the communication is key here throughout the process. Yeah, Shinzumla.
So most of these extra tips have been discussed already, but I just want to briefly review them again. And since most of you all are guidance counselors yourselves, you probably already do this, but just as a reminder, during the college application process, it's really important to meet often with the students and discuss their achievements, goals, aspirations in life, their preferences for colleges or their academic interests, and also any concerns they have with their college applications. So it not only will this help you write a better letter of recommendation, but it'll also help them be more focused with their application, and it keeps them accountable to doing that work. So it also helps you keep each other updated, such as which colleges they're applying to and also how far they are in their applications. You can also see on your Common Application dashboard how far your student has progressed within that specific application, but it's always important to just discuss that. In my case, I didn't know my college counselor until 11th grade when I started taking classes with my college counselor during free time. In our school, we had a full year and we had a separate class to just talk about college. So in that class, we did a lot of exercises about talking about our goals and achievements, and also what we want out of college, so that all of our counselors have a better understanding of why we want to go to college and also what type of students we are, because they're not our teachers. They help us on the side and they don't know exactly how we think. So we had a lot of meetings with them. And I remember distinctly, I had a meeting one-on-one with my counselor, and we just talked about, she wanted to just get to know me better. So we just talked about my goals, what I'm interested in, and that helped her better understand what type of person I am, as well as my character. Another important thing is to, a lot of students have already mentioned this, but helping students create a college list based on their interests. So researching into potential scholarships, financial aid, and international student policies will also help in narrowing down the list of US colleges that the student might want to apply to. This is mainly the student's job, but there are ways in which the counselor can help out with this. Both if two people do research, that'll be even more opportunities to apply to. Also, the college application process has a lot of deadlines. There's major deadlines like standardized testing deadlines, as well as the common application deadlines, and also financial aid applications such as the CSS and their deadlines. But also there's lots of other deadlines for specific colleges that they're applying to. It's important to make sure that the student is organized. It's good to encourage students to keep track of all of these deadlines. If they're applying to multiple colleges, you can encourage your students to use Google Calendar, which is what I did, and mark down all of the deadlines just to make sure that you're organized, and making sure that making sure that the student is on track, that you are also on track with your submissions of transcripts, letters of recommendations, etc. And if there's any concerns with teachers submitting any of their letters of recommendations, you can also discuss with teachers as well if there's any issues like that. Next slide. Yeah, and just reviewing the required documents that you need to submit, since common application policies might be a little bit different than some of the other Indian universities and their documents. And then some students already also said this, but passing along any resources or opportunities or scholarships to students that you think may help them. And this doesn't have to be nearing like the college application deadlines. This could be even like before that, like 9th grade, 10th grade. If you think the student might be interested in applying to US colleges, because one thing about US colleges is that they highly value demonstrations of leadership, like passion projects and extracurricular involvement, especially at top US institutions. As more schools in the US become test blind or optional, which is where test blind is where the schools don't really care about the standardized testing, such as SAT, ACT. Optional is where it's good to take it, or if you have high marks on your exams, then you can submit that, but it's optional. So that's why even if the student is pretty early on and you think that there are programs or opportunities that they might be interested in, it's good to pass that information along to them so that they can pursue that passion project related to their interests, and it can help them later down the road when they apply to colleges. And I have a personal anecdote for this as well. If my counselor didn't introduce me to a specific scholarship called QuestBridge, then I would not have probably been able to go to Stanford and like be where I am right now. That scholarship helped me get a full ride, and I had no idea about it before my counselor recommended it to me, because a lot of students at my school were not low income. So my counselor recommending that to me specifically really helps me in all of my college applications. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there were 2 questions in the, was it just, okay, already answered. Yeah, thank you. Listen.
Kandila ngarang the Tiwati Tanda recommendation counselor ki recommendation to kabla su profile de to profile jiksora counselor ki
Counselor portal jura hindi nanglo cho counselor ki profile dos le tu which is na here the nanglo counselor portal de ni profile la duna so is the counselor le tu. Wait. Profile profile counselor profile and gela so get ki profile le amna lapta ki profile get ki profile
tambo
ya
di nanglo la ger ki profile che any laptop ki profile di contest to ore school
laptop
profile
profile di lao jida kunzu video tioku the page na 망부지 하면서 건설이 information도 유명시 막 지다 아릴럽때 망부지 카도지라는 그런지 당한주 DC 백임도 스페셜 example DC 기니 가두고 주래 지다 가주는 가져봐도 요래니 딱 가져있다 저 랍때 망부지 야 데이터 요 건설배신나 부 가져지 통고래 부 가져지 계좌 가져지는 거 이래 작아지 망부이나 랍때 건설 남규지단 프로파일도 수리야 당한주 남규 백임 랍때 유명시 막 수이네 unit up to the upload cheche and mena kunzu developer in the link and laptop profile de random chat usum ya which is in a school setting school laptop the call yore patient laptop di dinso program dinse offer chigore yo mare ni under now indo ni counselor profile to jo direta kaptu laptop gi gela email address di counselor release chisa jela gela la email chi dire email de laptop di ni gela kirangi ni counselor situni profile ju so kir so le riani so du kabla kaptu ni suzuki mingta ni information saga ji kaji kya jo shoshu mambu ki team nam gyu onti pichiri la
kandila digi chi tanda di school ki profile chi doa di mandatory di gyangure inji minji any kesi school profile di mandatory chayo na ani di laptop gyung gyangire ya counselor gi gyangure
심베 님부티 심베 수지에 되는 군수 계시에 되가라 meaning yere je shoya
이 counselor gi kya ngore
sorry bigila konda tete nga tikimala jishinera gechituna upward la yor sam gituro nga zo tisi misali ku ina exam la yor school profile lokta kola to di yor fe chia ani odi exam se ge sani gela longra ani upload di gela rangi profile ne chio
let's tuchina
sukkarinche
Candela, can I say something?
yes of course please
Okay, so like in my experience and in my relationship with my TCV school, former like TCV school counselor, so her recommendation was like, so tanda hanjo the jujung love the do the doshin be love to the juma kisi ari thought of the application thank you na like counsel we have counseling classes right. I think you could recommend that if you do one recommendation letter, you should tell them that you guys should ask the recommendation letter earlier so that you guys can prepare. It's not like you guys are, because you have to craft each letter of recommendation for like everybody who's going to come to you. So I think it's going to be difficult for her to like if it's like last minute job, and a lot of students tends to do that, like tends to ask counselor for recommendation for at the very last moment, which is not ideal. I think so. And I think because nowadays we have awareness and we have been doing a lot of program, I think a lot of students are like trying to apply to US colleges. So if you can tell them beforehand that you guys should, if you guys are need letter of recommendation, please ask them earlier so that you guys can do a proper do a better job at it or anything.
yes so thank you any other questions any chida okay I guess we can end the recording for now do you think and then if anyone has any other questions we can yeah